Hey, this is Albert with Mill Creek Overland and the Rally Rats. Just wanted to talk about a new product that is just coming out, and then a new company to the off-road market as well. So, who's IAG? IAG is a company that's been around for the last 10 or 15 years in the performance world. They've done a lot, especially with Subarus specifically. Subaru guys know the brand and this product as well, but IAG has done some amazing stuff. They've got massive horsepower cars running around that are using very similar setups to this air oil separator that we've installed today on our 22 Bronco here. And so that kind of takes us to what is an air oil separator. So I'm sure if you've been around cars and modifying cars, trucks for long enough, you've heard of an oil catch can. Just to elaborate on that a little bit, so every vehicle has crankcase pressure. What happens is, as your piston is going up and down, the piston rings have a little bit of gap, and some of the combustion pressures and combustion gases end up making their way past the piston rings and actually pressurizing your crankcase. And so there has to be a way of getting that crankcase pressure out. So what companies have done is they've put together the PCV system, that's the positive crankcase ventilation system, to evacuate those gases and then bring them back into the intake tract to then burn those gases, because the EPA says that those are unburnt hydrocarbons that need to be dealt with and can't just be vented to atmosphere. Ha! Gay! So traditionally what companies have done is they've installed a catch can. A catch can is simply a can that is in that tract of the PCV system, and there is usually some sort of a media in that tract, usually like a steel wool or something like that, that causes the air with oil vapor to enter, hit that media, condense, and then puddle essentially in that can. The problem with that is that you have to then take that can and empty it out on a regular basis, otherwise that thing will fill up. You really don't want to be sucking in straight oil into your intake tract. The other problem with that is the media and the can itself are usually kept fairly cool because they're kept away from the engine. And so not only do you get the oil condensing and dropping in there, but you also get moisture from the crankcase that will eventually puddle in there, or the can itself, you know, it'll get cold overnight and then you start it up, and the moisture that's in there will actually puddle into the oil and cause that oil to actually turn a little bit acidic, and that pH is just really not good for the rest of your oiling system. Granted, with those catch cans, you're supposed to be dumping that oil out, so none of that acidity should be making it into your oil, but that's one of the things that makes this system unique, is that it's heated. And so essentially what this is it's a big catch can system, and instead of using a media, what they're using is a baffle system to take some of the oil vapor and take the droplets out of the air, and then drain all of that oil back into the crankcase. But you actually run coolant through this system to heat the can. That way you're not causing condensate to collect in there and then make its way into your oiling system and cause the engine oil to get acidic and cause other issues that way. So that's kind of this system in a nutshell. It was set up for these big high horsepower Subarus that are running a ton of boost to be able to handle a high volume of air. And so that's why the volume of the can itself is so large when compared to some of these catch can setups. But with these Broncos, I mean, we're running 18 PSI from the factory before we even modify anything. So we're running pretty high boost with the factory V6s. So it's pretty important, yeah, that we have a high-flowing PCV setup, and this does just that. It is completely enclosed, so also you do have the proper amount of vacuum on your crankcase. A lot of good things going on here, but the install is a little bit more intricate than your traditional catch can setup. So the way the hoses are run, you're putting them underneath some of the wiring harnesses, but they all come really cleanly crimped. They all come with the factory style connectors. They're all of the correct length. It's a really, really nicely engineered setup. IAG has done a fantastic job with it, and I expect that we're going to get some good long service out of this system and be really happy with taking some of that oil out of the intaked tract. Now, a couple of things that we did notice with the install of this: you do have to remove one factory PCV hose, and it has essentially a one-time use lock on it. And so you have to cut this hose assembly lock off. That's a bit of a challenge, so be aware of that. You know, a few choice words while removing this goes a long way, but it'll come out of there. Just be patient, get it on out of there. Don't be afraid to break it out of there, because they have hoses that replace it. A couple of other things that we did notice while doing this install is that you're likely not going to clear, like on this truck, the underhood sound dampening pad. So this is a 2022 Wild Track Bronco with the Luxe package. So it has a sound pad from the factory, and with that it's a little bit too tight, a little too close for comfort, so we went ahead and removed that, which is fine. It just lets us hear the turbos whistle and whoosh a little bit more whenever we're driving. Once you do that, you should be good to go. One of the other things that we did notice is that underneath the catch can, the coolant hose that runs over to the coolant reservoir, if you don't clock it towards the rear of the vehicle and then you install it, you're not going to be able to clock it afterwards. So you're going to have to remove everything and then reclock it and then run it that way. So before you actually bolt it in, make sure you turn the banjo fittings to the rear, to the firewall, and you'll be good to go there. The last little thing that we had is whenever we were removing the oil fill neck, it's pretty tight in here. So it does help if you can loosen the charge pipe clamps here and just kind of move the charge pipe a little bit to give your hand a little bit more room to get in there, loosen it all up, replace it with the one that it comes with. Other than that, great system. Looks to be really well engineered. We're stoked to be carrying IAG at millcreekoverland.com. So yeah, check us out, get one for yourself, and I think you'll be real happy with not having to drain catch cans and all that other stuff. There's room to grow with this setup. It doesn't matter how much boost that you add to it. If it can handle these 800,000 horsepower sports cars, I think it's going to do everything that it needs to for our Broncos. We'll see you.